But again, back to your model and who you're doing. You're right. I mean, somebody who's willing to do what you're doing, and that is, here's my need, here's my problem. You give me answers, and
Right.
I'm going to trust you. They're going to expect excellence. They're going to expect a project manager who knows what he's doing and calling every Friday and letting them know what the next week's going to be like. And that's a lot of their processes that they have that we've implemented at the Trusted Toolbox in our projects.
Yeah, communication, even a really challenging client, as long as they know what's going on, they're pretty understanding.
I've never had somebody yell at me saying, I can't believe you told me that you were behind, but I have had people yell at me saying, how come you didn't tell me you guys were running behind? Or why didn't you tell me this back order product isn't around? But nobody ever calls and says, when you call and tell them, look, that window that we thought was coming in 4 to 6 weeks, now here we are, COVID happened, and now it's 12 weeks. They're mad, they're upset, but they're not mad that you called them and told them.
Well, and I do have challenges. Some of my teams struggle with having to pick up the phone and convey the bad information. The problem is the bad information doesn't get any better by waiting. And so I am very, very sensitive to that if there's a problem, I will pick up the phone and call. I may not have the answer. I don't have the solution yet. I just want them to know we're aware of it. We're working on it. Here's what the problem is. And we'll call you as soon as we have.
And has anybody ever yelled at you and go, how dare you call me and let me know you have a problem?
No.
But they do go, you knew about this 2 weeks ago and now you're just telling me? And that's exactly the point. Guys, you got to deliver the news. You don't have the answer, but tell them you're aware of it and tell them you're working on it. That's all they want to hear. And then get to work on it and come back.
Welcome to the Small Business Safari, where I help guide you to avoid those traps, pitfalls, and dangers that lurk when navigating the wild world of small business ownership. I'll share those gold nuggets of information and invite guests to help accelerate your ascent to that mountaintop of success. It's a jungle out there, and I want to help you traverse through the levels of owning your own business that can get you bogged down and distract you from hitting your own personal and professional goals. So strap in, adventure team, and let's take a ride through the safari and get you to the mountaintop.
Here we go again. Small Business Safari back in action. Let's go make it happen. Let's get you up that mountaintop. To get up to that success point that you want to get to, tune in. Let's listen. Let's learn. I call this the edutainment broadcast of podcasting. Why? Because we have a little fun, and hopefully we learn this little something. And today we have one of our good friends here, or my good friend here locally in Atlanta, Dan Weidmann from Weidmann and Associates Remodeling. But Weidmann and Associates Remodeling here in Atlanta actually is known as one of the gold standards. You want to go to these guys when you want to do nothing but white glove service. You want to have a turnkey, everything looking good. You got money to burn, but you also expect somebody to kiss your ass the entire time they're making this thing happen. That's this guys. And when you see the quality and the work that they do, it blows your mind. So Dan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast with us, and we're going to start grilling you here in a minute.
My pleasure. You're putting me up to a high standard here if anybody calls and contacts me for a job.
That's right. This is going to be a big deal. But before we say go,
cheers. Well, cheers.
Cheers. Okay.
What are we drinking today, Alan?
I have Bed of Nails Brown Ale.
Nice. We are drinking Coronas. Because for those listening on the podcast, Alan's usually in studio with me while we're grilling people on the Zoom. But no, we have Alan deciding to big time me and go back up to Boone and get away from me yet again. So for that, Alan, you're going to get another trip from me that I'm not going to tell you about until you come back, because you made me so mad that you left again. I told you in the last episode, a couple episodes ago, I told you left, went to Boone, and I'm going down to Naples. So I did that. We're back, and now we're doing this. So here we go. I'm going to tell you about my next trip next time.
Are you telling me you're going on a spite vacation?
This is it. Right. This is this is my bounce back, my rebound vacation. I'm so mad at you. I've got to rebound and get another one. So Alan's coming again live from Boone, North Carolina, where the wind is howling, and we have him on a special Zoom session.
Just don't tell your wife that the vacation, assuming you're taking her on this one, is a spite vacation.
Well, I'm taking her for part of it. But the first part, I'm doing the boys' part. Is that fair?
What does that involve?
I'll tell you when you get back.
Okay.
Because I'm just formulating. In fact, I'm going to make it as big and epic as possible. It may involve jets. It may involve cruises. It may involve yachts. It may involve Monte Carlo. I don't know yet. I'm still trying to figure it out. All right, let's get in. Let's start talking to Dan. Dan, for the listeners, I'm going to go because Dan's got a very unique style. And so if I could introduce him, or I could just go rapid fire questions. Dan, where are you from originally?
Originally from Wisconsin.
Yeah, where'd you go to college?
Went to Purdue.
And what'd you get your degree in?
Aero-astro engineering.
Whoa.
Good Lord.
What the hell is that?
Don't know. I just want to know how planes flew, and it took me 4 years to figure it out.
Nice. It only took him 4 years to figure it out. I think we're working with somebody who's pretty intellectual. All right. So after that,
Dan, you may need to use small words for us.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Okay, thank you.
I did use the word a couple episodes ago, and I used it twice, and then I went to use it the third time, and Alan's like, I think you're overusing that word. I'm like, I finally could say it. So I said it was like a 15-cent word, man. This is like SAT stuff.
It was iteration.
I said iteration.
Okay, I'll try to work that in.
Thank you. Right. That's your challenge today is work in the word iteration.
All right.
So you go get your
Aero-astro.
And you decide to go into the military. So
I decided first. So I was in ROTC. So I was there on scholarship with ROTC. After I got out, then I got commissioned as a second lieutenant, and I ended up in Florida.
What were you doing in Florida?
Doing weapon systems testing, blowing stuff up.
That's what aero-astro engineering gets you. You can blow shit up.
I don't know. Is that what this podcast is about? Blowing stuff up? I want to hear more.
It can be. No, it was fun. I enjoyed that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So how long did you do that?
So I was in Florida for 4 years. Then I got transferred, moved, and went up to Boston, Hanscom Air Force Base, and spent a couple of years up there working in a office focused on development of an airborne radar system for tracking tanks and trucks.
Wow. How cool. So why'd you decide to get out if you're doing all that cool shit?
It just didn't seem that, difficult. And I had started working with a lawyer in the office, and that I found that intriguing. LA law was popular at the time. It looked like fun. And so I thought, what the heck, got out of the military, went to law school.
That is so funny. So I watched LA Law and decided to become a lawyer. Top Gun, when they go back and look at the Top Gun movie when it came out, enlistments went up some incredible percentage. And I have a guy working for me. He said the reason I enlisted to go into the military, to go into the Navy specifically, was because I saw Top Gun. I said, did you ever fly a plane? He goes, no, I was behind a desk the whole time. He goes, mine wasn't as good. And I got another guy who was combat. I mean, he was on an aircraft carrier. But all right, so you come out and you get your law degree. Where'd you go get that?
So I did that at the University of Florida, Gainesville.
And did you know exactly what you're going to do coming out?
No, I had no idea what I was going to do going in, and kind of learned over time. Thought what I wanted to do was litigation, and ultimately that's what I went into, commercial litigation.
So how long did you do that?
Did it for 3 years, and then found out maybe it wasn't as exciting as they made it look on TV. More importantly, I looked at the people that were doing it, that had been doing it for 20 years, and here I was, a lowly associate. Their life wasn't much better.
Oh, boy.
It's time to make a change.
So what was that change?
Well, my brother, shortly after I got out of law school, my brother had started this remodeling company, Weidmann and Associates, up here in Atlanta. And he had reached out to me and said, hey, we ought to go into business together. And I said, I'm a lawyer. I got a career here. Well, after 3 years, I decided maybe that was a good opportunity. Reached out to him and said, let's talk. 6 months later, I was in Atlanta.
Where'd you move from?
So I was first out of law school. I first worked with a law firm in Tampa. Then I moved over to Orlando, and I came up from Orlando.
Gotcha. So now he gets into the wild world of remodeling. Alan.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, weapon system testing.
One.
Then you become a trial lawyer and using all the techniques you learned on LA law.
Two. Yeah. Right. Skip the school shit. It was all LA law. That's how he learned to be a lawyer. Yeah.
And now we're in luxury remodeling. It's just a natural progression.
It seemed to me it worked. Actually, what it was, people asked, what brought you to remodeling? It wasn't so much getting into remodeling; it was getting out of the practice of law,
getting out, running away from something. So there you go, pain point. And my son wants to be a lawyer too.
It's a great degree.
Yeah.
Just as long as you don't use it day to day, it's a great way to learn to think and interact with people, negotiate, everything else. So, it's beneficial. I don't regret it. I'm happy I'm not doing any more, I'm no longer in the courtroom.
All right. I like that. And now we got Dan, you're remodeling. When you joined your brother, how much were you guys doing in revenue? Just give us an idea of scale and what you were doing in projects.
So we were doing, back then we were just shy of $1 million the first year I was with them. We eventually grew to just shy of 7 million. And then we went into the Great Recession, and then we got to become a smaller company again.
So you went from 1 to 7 and then back again.
Back down, ended up we got as low as just under 3 million, reducing staff along the way.
Wow. That must have been so hard to write it up and then write it back down.
It was tough. That was a hard time. There's no doubt about it.
Did you ever think about giving it up at that time?
No, because it meant I'd have to go back into the practice of law, and it wasn't that bad.
Had you guys saved up enough? I mean, talk about that, because I started in 2008, and I joke about starting my business in the Great Recession. Beautiful, genius move. But how about having a business of that size and then having to figure out, especially in the world of remodeling in 2008, all the things you had to do? Did you have enough savings? Did you have I guess you have to have the fortitude to do very tough things and make very tough choices. Well,
the one thing, my brother has always been and continues to be very much involved in the financial aspects of the business. We always operated on a budget. We were always tracking our numbers. We knew what our, how many leads were coming in. We knew what our conversion rate was. We could very easily forecast what was coming down the pike based on how many calls we were receiving. And so we were able to adapt, and we made the adjustments. We probably hung on, like everybody did, to people longer than we should have. But we had, we didn't have a lot of profits those years, but we were always profitable. We never lost money.
Wow. That again, how many companies can say, especially in this world, because it came so hard. And I had come out of the world of banking and finance to watch this and write it down. I joke about it. I don't know if I would have been able to sustain that long of a downturn, because when COVID hit, I was able to cut, and I cut quickly. I saw it coming, and I made those hard choices. I was laying off, asking people to take a 25% pay cut in the office, and getting it down, because I'm like, hey, if I wrote it up here, I can write it right back down for a while. And I did. I thought it would be about 2 months, and that's about what it turned out to be for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that wasn't bad, but it had been prolonged for 2 years. Ooh.
Well, it's funny, because when COVID hit, people asked me, are you stressed out about this? I said, this is nothing compared to what we went through in 08, 09, 10, 11, carried into 12 for us. COVID, I said, if nothing else, I go, within a year, we'll be back to some sense of normality. It didn't quite work out that way. It was a new normal 1 year later. It was a different normal 2 years later, and it's changing now.
Alan?
And now we're heading into a recession. So
it
sounds to me like
feels like it.
Yeah. So you're not scared, I take it.
We've reshaped the company based on going through the Great Recession. We're a lot leaner now. So we're right now bigger than we were back in 2007. So we're just shy of 8 million produced last year. But we have less staff. I had 18 people on staff. Right now I'm down to 15 and producing more. We've outsourced a lot of things that we used to have in-house, and I've got flexibility. My people have been through it. Many of the people that were with us, during the Great Recession are still with us. And so I know they will adapt and will adapt as needed. I'm just not worried about it.
Do you have what it takes to start your own business? Are you tired of the 9-to-5 corporate job and ready to make that leap into entrepreneurship? You need to check out From the Zoo to the Wild, the book by successful entrepreneur Chris Lalomia. This book is a unique perspective on the journey into the wild world of home services and delivering excellence in service while working in customers' homes. Lalomia shares his path to success in this industry, including proven customer relationship strategies, award-winning customer experience processes, and a unique approach to training a team of service technicians to perform at the highest levels. Whether you're a small business trying to scale or a franchise operation, From the Zoo to the Wild will give you the mindset, habits, leadership style, and customer-oriented processes to succeed as a small business owner in the world of home services. So if you're ready to take control of your future, get a copy of From the Zoo to the Wild today, available on Amazon.
What did you find you could outsource without compromising quality?
So primarily what we're doing is I've outsourced most of our design work is being outsourced. Used to have it in-house. Sales, I now head the sales. I've reduced the staff. Back in 07, we had 4 people involved in sales. And now I've got 2, and we're producing more.
So I alluded to the difference in remodeling. I think for a lot of listeners who don't really understand it, why don't you explain a little bit about what you guys do, design, build, and what your typical size of project is and what it would be?
So design build just means we're a turnkey solution. The clients come to us, they're planning to do something, they've got a problem in their home. We help them, assess what the challenges are, what the objectives are, what the issues are they're trying to solve. We then bring to bear the design resources to first create, resolve the functional problem by changing the layout of the home, adding an addition, moving things around, whatever it is. We then also bring in the interior design resources to help with selections of finishes, and then we manage the construction to completion. And we have different people that specialize in each of those areas that kind of take them through from the initial conversation all the way to the completion of construction.
An average job size?
Average job size, well, depends on which branch. We've got 2 branches. We've got one in Atlanta, one out at Lake Oconee. They were pretty equal going up to COVID. Since COVID, the lake has taken off. There's so much work out there. We're taking bigger projects out there than we are in Atlanta. Our average job size going into COVID was about 250,000, both here and out at the lake. It's now stayed around 250 in Atlanta, and it's almost 3 times that at the lake.
Oh my God. Did you catch that?
Yeah, I'm thinking a remodel for $750,000. What are they doing?
But we've got one going on right now. It's 3.2 million. So, and remodeling is probably, people think, I get calls all the time, and I refer them to Chris. They call and they go, "Hey, I got a remodeling project that we're planning. What are you doing?" "Well, I want to change out my front door and I put in some new light fixtures." And there's a misconception about what remodeling is. There's just a huge difference between companies as far as what they're doing and what they're calling remodeling.
I think that's the key point for everybody listening, is that you could say I'm in the construction industry. Okay, that's a pretty broad brush. You say, "Oh, well, no, I'm a remodeler just like you." Again, it's a very broad brush when you do that. And when you meet somebody like Dan and you start to understand what his project size is, and you start talking about that. So if you take off a few of those zeros, now you're in mine, right? 2,500, sure. 7,500, you bet. Handyman day all day long. Here we go. We're doing a $50,000 project, and we call it remodeling. So it's different.
Yeah, Chris, how big of a yacht would you be on with a $3.2 million job?
I'm not going to lie. I have a lot of envy and jealousy, not just because he got to blow up shit, but because, like I said, he was gracious enough to show us what he does. And one of the things I want to talk about is that I'll give you my avatar, and I think I've done a really good job of saying, "Hey, I know exactly who my customer is." It's a busy family of 4 in a suburban house somewhere between 300 and 550,000, because if it's too big, they're usually a little too rich for our blood, and they think that we should be a lot cheaper than we are. So we're looking for people in the middle to do our jobs. And I know that when I asked Dan what his client was, it was a shock to me. And so what I want to ask Dan is just, you qualify, and you personally qualify many of your own leads and been up there. Tell us what you qualify and look for in a customer.
So, well, one is home value is important. Obviously, with the size projects we're doing, you're not going to spend $500,000 on a house that's worth 200. Right. So the first thing we're looking at is the value of the home. Our typical home values range from about $600,000 to $1.5 million. They get much bigger than that. The design build model isn't as important. They start hiring architects to do the really big jobs. We just happened to be in the right place, right time, and we did the 3.2 million, designed it ourselves with our resources, but that's kind of unusual. But basically, we're looking at clients. Our clients typically don't have the time, the inclination, or the experience to take on a project like they're considering. But more importantly, they're looking for a company they can afford to do it right. They can't afford to do it twice.
What was the home value on the $3.2 million job?
Probably, I think they purchased it for about 2.5. So they are increasing. I mean, they're spending more than the value of the home to redo it, but they're taking everything out. It's all going back new. It was previously remodeled. The previous owner had doubled it in size, but did not do a good job in upgrading the finishes or connecting the areas of the house. And so we're basically going back in and reworking it with a whole lot of bells and whistles. It's going to be sweet when we finish up, and we're closing in on it now.
I love it. We're going to talk bells and whistles and how Dan promotes those in a little bit. But one of the things that I was impressed when I asked Dan to profile his clients. So if a customer calls up and says, I have a bathroom, I have my design, and I know exactly what I want to do, Dan says, no, thank you. Yep. He says no. I'm like, oh my God, I would say yes 1,000 times over. I'm like, yes, please let me come bid that. So why do you say no?
Because that's not what we're structured for. That's not our client. There's companies out there that will do a better job for that project. That they don't have. I've got resources that are available to the clients that need design assistance, are looking for someone to guide them through the process. They've already done all that legwork. They can hire just any contractor that just does construction work to fill in the holes.
AKA the trusted toolbox. So, but that's the thing I thought was really cool. Dan talks about that a lot when we were there talking to him. He said, look, if they know exactly what they want, I'm not the fit for them. And then the other thing I also look for is, he didn't say this, but I'll say it. He said, I'm looking for the asshole factor, because do I let that person come into my company that may cause my employees a lot of stress? He said, so my job is to make sure I filter in good customers as best I can to make sure that my employees can go do the thing they're doing the best and having fun doing it. And I was like, wow, that's pretty heady. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I've told my team that is the most important job I have in the company, is making sure that we're working with good people, because they're going to spend a lot more time with them than I am. And I value my people too much to put them in a situation where they're being abused by somebody that doesn't treat them with respect.
I'm just sitting here amazed. So somebody comes up and it's a $500,000 job, but they seem like an asshole, and you're going to politely say, hey, I don't think we're the right company for you. How do you extract yourself from that situation?
Well, so I've been at this a long time. So so basically when somebody calls, right, they got to get through the first filter, which is the size of the job is right, the location is right, what they're looking for in a contractor is consistent with what we offer. Then it all comes to me, and I interview them on the phone, and I've got a series of questions that I go through it that pretty much at the end of that conversation, I know whether or not they're going to hire us. And ultimately, I kindly excuse myself. And based on the answers to those questions, I explain to them why we're the wrong company and what they, and I'll refer them to the right company. So you said the asshole factor. I'm not really, there's people that are going to be a pain to work with. I deal with a lot of people that are very particular. They're very demanding. That's what my company delivers to. It's the people that are going to make your life miserable in the process. I don't care if you demand high level of service and quality. I want to deliver that to you, but be nice about it. And there's people that just aren't nice.
Chris, did you hear that? It was his trial lawyer experience coming through there, because he asked him a series of questions and he cross-examines, and that's how he determines who's the asshole.
So he's doing what here? He's really doing jury selection, trying to figure out who he wants to pick. I'm like, I need to pick his brain more on that, because I let way too many in. But to be clear, I'm the one who coined asshole factor, not Weidmann and Associates. That's not what they do. If you want to call them, they're not going to do that to you when they say no. He doesn't think that. But just know that when you work with the Trusted Toolbox, Chris might be thinking that. To be clear and very transparent.
Well, I got to ask you, a lot of companies, they have what they call the PETA factor when they're doing their pricing. the pain in the ass factor.
Yes.
And me, I can't charge enough
Gotcha.
to justify taking on somebody that's going to make my team suffer.
All right. So I have actually flipped this back to my estimators, who are the ones who ultimately will pick these, the ones we sell out of the office. That's one that I'm still working on, because it's really hard to figure out if somebody's going to flip on you and be crazy. But with my estimators, my question to them is, do you want them as a customer? Would you go back and work with them, with our technician doing the work? And if you say no, I'm not going to trump you and come over the top and say, let's keep this customer, because then that customer becomes my customer. And I don't want any more customers. I want you guys to have them. So that's how I flipped it around, is to say, you guys have to qualify. But, again, you try your best. You've been at this a long time. You're trying to train your guys who are also doing this, based on my experience, for 15 years now. You can usually tell who's going to be good and bad, but every once in a while things just go the wrong way. But again, back to your model and who you're doing, you're right. I mean, somebody who's willing to do what you're doing, and that is, here's my need, here's my problem, you give me answers, and right. I'm gonna trust you. They're going to expect excellence. They're going to expect a project manager who knows what he's doing and calling every Friday and letting them know what the next week's going to be like. And that's a lot of their processes that they have that we've implemented at the Trusted Toolbox in our projects.
Yeah, communication, even a really challenging client, as long as they know what's going on, they're pretty understanding.
I've never had somebody yell at me saying, I can't believe you told me that you were behind, but I have had people yell at me saying, how come you didn't tell me you guys were running behind? Or why didn't you tell me this back order product isn't around? But nobody ever calls and says, when you call and tell them, look, that window that we thought was coming in 4 to 6 weeks, now here we are, COVID happened, and now it's 12 weeks. They're mad, they're upset, but they're not mad that you called them and told them.
Well, and I do have challenges. Some of my teams struggle with having to pick up the phone and convey the bad information. The problem is the bad information doesn't get any better by waiting. And so I am very, very sensitive to that if there's a problem, I will pick up the phone and call. I may not have the answer. I don't have the solution yet. I just want them to know we're aware of it. We're working on it. Here's what the problem is. And we'll call you as soon as we have.
And has anybody ever yelled at you and go, how dare you call me and let me know you have a problem?
No.
But they do go, you knew about this 2 weeks ago and now you're just telling me. And that's exactly the point. Guys, you got to deliver the news. You don't have the answer, but tell them you're aware of it and tell them you're working on it. That's all they want to hear. And then get to work on it and come back.
Yeah. It's been interesting with COVID. COVID has been such a hard time with delays and problems and everything else. It's actually been pretty easy with our clients because they're having those problems in every aspect of their life. Everything's behind. Nothing's happening. They can't get anybody to respond. So when we call them and tell them, hey, here's how it's impacting your remodeling project, they've been understanding. Not that it doesn't get a little old for them to have to deal with it all the time.
No, I mean, it's tiring.
Yeah.
Alan?
Yeah, it's been such a big theme of ours over the whole time we've been doing the podcast is being able to say no to potential business. And Chris, you talk about it all the time, that you said yes to everything when you first started, and it was a disaster. And since a lot of our listeners are people thinking about getting into business, or they're new in business, and they just haven't learned that the hard way yet. And so one of the things we're trying to do is help them avoid that. But when you finding the right customer for the way you do business is just so crucial. How do you extract yourself from somebody who, you're doing very high-end projects. You've got somebody who's got all the money in the world, and you can do the job, and they know you can do the job. I mean, how do you politely, without, creating a social media nightmare, extract yourself from that person?
When I first took on, I transitioned in the company. I started off when I joined my brother. I came in and I was doing everything. That's how I learned the business. But ultimately, I took over the production side. So I was interacting with the clients day to day. Then I took over. So I started off as a project manager. I was out there in the field running the jobs. Then I started running the production. So I understood what was going on in the field. When I transitioned and took over the sales side, we flipped roles. And then I was in the position to determine which clients we worked well with and which ones we didn't. I had the opportunity to take everything I'd learned from dealing with them in the field and apply that to the selection process. And I got initially, when I told people no, people get upset with me. What do you mean you're not going to come out here and talk to me? Right now, when I talk to somebody, if I excuse myself, they're usually thanking me for my candor of explaining why we're not a good fit for them. And I learned a long time ago, it's always about them, whether they're our client or not. I'm excusing myself from this because my team and I are not the right people for you. You're not going to be happy. I'm going to disappoint you. And for these reasons, we've talked about it. You've explained what you're looking for. We're not structured to deliver that. And as a result, you're better off, aren't you going to come out and talk to me? No, you need to be meeting with people that you're going to potentially hire. I'm telling you, you don't want to hire me. And so again, it's all about, I'm saving them time. Don't waste your time meeting with me. Don't, this is what you should be looking for. And so I'm helping even those people that I know would be a bad fit for us. I'm helping them because there's somebody out there that can take care of them, that will keep them happy. It's just not us.
I think what I took away from that is the art of the exit, right? And that's what we're talking about is one, have the candor, be direct. Two, let them know you're here to help them. You're helping them and you're giving back time to them. And then the benefit is you're giving back time and allowing them with your knowledge to go out and find the right fit for them. So I like that. Again, very hard to execute. And I do think Dan and his personal skills and his training that he's had over the years can probably do this a lot better than a lot of people can, but it's not something you can't learn.
Well, I think the big thing is you talk about there's a-holes out there. They know they are. And so when you're excusing yourself, they're not surprised. And so it's just having the art to acknowledge that you know who you are and we're not going to have fun together. And I want to have fun.
Awareness is part of the problem. And so that's the first step. I should probably start using that. Awareness is the first step. And so you need to admit that. I'll probably go with that first. I probably not. So strike that. Let's go back to number 4. Be candor, but don't say, come on, just let's both admit you're an asshole. You can't say that.
I had one, interesting story. I had one. Somebody just brought this up the other day. Had a client that I should not have taken on, and it was miserable. But he knew he was a pain. And at the end, he wanted to know the job. We finally finished the job. And he asked me, he goes, well, don't you want to come out and take pictures? It's beautiful. I said, I want no memory of this whatsoever. I am so glad this is done. I just don't want your picture of your project to show up on my screen. And somebody was shocked. You told him that? I go, yeah, he knew he was a pain. We dealt with it. We worked through it, but there's no holding back at the end.
That's hilarious. So they come in, you have to deal with them. You got the right processes. You're doing it that way. One of the things that you guys learned, and it sounds like you've held true to, is you're staying in your niche and staying in your lane to deliver that high quality of service. One of the things that you have to do is you have to stay in the forefront of our industry. And we've had a lot of people talk about this. And our construction industry is way behind when it comes to technology and good processes. But how are you staying in front of not just running the business, but obviously you want to be out there in front of the trends to give people great ideas. How are you staying out there in front?
Well, this is an advantage of the fact that I do bring in people from the outside that are exposed to different companies, different contractors, different projects. So the design team that I'm working with are doing other projects. They're getting information that I'm unaware of, and they're bringing it to our projects when I engage them. So that's an advantage of an outsourced architectural designer, interior designer. They're working with multiple people. They're not jaded by simply working for my company and doing the things we do. And I think you see that a lot of times with remodeling companies is you look at a picture and you know who did the work because it looks like every other picture of work they've done, and it gets stale. Mine right now, I've got projects in design development and I've got 5 different people working on them.
Wow. So bringing in better designers, people from the outside to help you bring yourself up to the forefront and provide the best value for your customers that's a great idea. Obviously using other people's great minds and experiences to help you do that. So one of the things that, and you can't see this on the podcast, but Dan is not a millennial, if that hasn't come across yet. Dan is not a Gen Z, but Dan has gone absolutely flipping viral with a product that he put into a house, and it has gone TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook viral. And the reason I know that is because while I'm not a millennial as well, I actually am probably the oldest millennial out there, and I'm on social media all the time. So, Dan, tell everybody what you put out there that just absolutely took off.
Well, I got to give you a little background. My daughter has been on TikTok for years. So she started in high school. She got up to a following of 250,000 people. So she was good at, generating interest. And so, we've dabbled in social media. I'm not doing any of it. And I finally told her, hey, you know what? We ought to do a TikTok. Let's set up a Weidmann TikTok account and go out and do something. And so we did. And we went out on our first shoot. We went out one day, she went to a number of projects. The first video she posted, I was shocked. Within hours, tens of thousands of views. Well, then I found out that it was being reposted by people that had much more, a lot more followers. We were new. We were just getting started. And right now, the video and the content we posted has been viewed, best I can tell, somewhere between 25 and 30 million times between the various different social medias. The product was, we did this project 2 years ago, and it was a kitchen that was poorly laid out. We reconfigured it and we took the kitchen space and we divided it in two, and we basically created a pantry, mudroom, scullery, not a mudroom, pantry or scullery or secondary kitchen behind the main kitchen. But the wall that separated the two, tile backsplash, made it retractable. Not only retractable, it's automated. Alexa, raise backsplash, the backsplash goes up, and it combines the two rooms.
How do we find that video?
Tell you what, you just go on Google, you go on any search engine, type in retractable backsplash, then click on videos, and you're going to see it.
Hey, Alan, I'm the goldfish here. You're not supposed to do it now, buddy. We're doing a podcast for everybody else. You can't do it now. All right. So we've lost Alan. So let's go back.
You guys keep talking. I'm going to look this up.
All right. So this retractable backsplash goes out to get 25 to 30 million views. And what I thought was wild is that I see Dan, I'd say about once a month. We're part of NARI, which is the National Association of the Remodeling Industry. Can never get that straight. And I'm on the freaking board, and you were the president. So I see you about once a month, and I've been out there, and I do a lot of social media, and I push the Small Business Safari. I push the Trusted Toolbox. I push the Home Service Institute. I also promote my book, From the Zoo to the Wild. Everybody go out there and take a listen to that. It's available on Amazon. Cheap plug. Let's keep going. But you were there, and man, I had seen you everywhere. I was like, oh my God, I saw him on TikTok. I saw him on Instagram. I'm like, Dan, what the hell? And so he explained, he goes, we're going out there. And because his projects are super cool too, right? And it's a very visual thing. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And usually people use that in a negative way, but you can't unsee this tile backsplash, which we all know is, intuitively, we all know it's just heavy as hell and it's not supposed to move. And this thing moves.
Yeah, it was funny because when I came up with it, we had done another one that was manually operated, and this client had seen it, but he was a techie. He wanted it to be automated. He wanted it to be tied in with Alexa. And so it presented some challenges. So as an engineer, I took on the challenge and lost money on putting this thing together, figuring out how to make it work. There was not a turnkey solution, so I had to come up with the pieces and parts and put the whole thing together by trial and error. We got a working system, and now I'm working on creating the turnkey solution so others can replicate it, because I'm getting calls from all over the country, all over the world.
So retractablebacksplash.com, that is powered by Dan Weidmann, your Instagram viral guy. He is like Daniel Mack. Hey, what kind of car are you driving? He is big. He is everywhere. And how many times do you go on social media a day?
I'm checking it every day. I don't go on that often, and we're not posting very often.
I was waiting for you to say, to do more. Once a week.
Oh. No. I check it every day because there's things popping up, and so I check it.
Nice. Well, you got to follow me, man. I do a lot of fun stuff, but I'm not 25, 30 million views either. No, I'm nobody. In fact, I just joked I'm like a D-list celebrity. I'm now after this, I'm like an F-list. I'm a Z-list. Oh, wow. So that's awesome that you put that out there. Actually, I've been seeing some of the other content. Your daughter's doing a great job. Because of what you guys do, there's a really cool wow factor. And one of the things, if you haven't picked up in everything we've been talking about, I'm going to hit this again. Social media is one thing, but videos are so visceral And I'll give you a great example of this is that there was a football player years ago who allegedly had beat his girlfriend and had done some very bad things. And so they suspended him, but they were trying to make it go under the rug. Well, the video got leaked. And when she saw that video and what he did to this young lady was horrible. And if you didn't see what had happened, you wouldn't have been so visceral and gone nuts. But when you saw it, you went, oh, that's right. This guy needs to be kicked out. And yes, his career does need to be ruined because you don't do that. But you would have had just heard about it, see it written word. It wasn't so video is so visceral and so big. That's why I put videos in all my newsletter. Is Alan back now?
Oh my God. That is unbelievable.
Right?
That is so badass.
Backsplash.com. Badass. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, now you're promoting that. I don't know when this is going on. So the website's being built now. So you can go on Weidmann Remodeling and see it on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. The website with additional video, additional information is still a few weeks off.
Yeah, how about that? So Weidmann Remodeling, we'll put on. Yeah, right. I know, doing the same.
Wait, you got to talk now. Wait till you see the video. We've got one now. This is what's fun about this business is going in and doing something creative on our different projects. So that was one that was unique. There's other things that are posted, hidden compartments, everything else. The project we're doing, the big project we're doing out at our Lake Oconee branch, has a secret passageway. And he was a, little Batman enthusiast. It's got the Shakespeare head. You open it up, flip a lever, bookcase opens up and leads into this secret passageway to the wine storage. There's two. There's an American style wine storage room, a European wine storage room, a tasting room, all hidden down this hallway that you access with the secret, switch.
Again, he talks about the words, and again, you see it written word in there, but video is going to be so much punchier. It's going to punch it up when you see the Shakespeare head. And I'm expecting Dan, when he demonstrates this, that he's going to be wearing his Batman hat and cape. And if not, I'm going to make sure that I tell your daughter that, so she makes you wear that.
I'll do something. I got to do something.
You got to be Batman.
Yeah, there you go.
Batman, and I'm on my way to the wine.
Chris, do better.
I know. Hey, man, dude, the coolest thing I ever did was we did a Murphy bed. We did a Murphy hideaway so the guy could get to his HVAC and have his man cave. And I was like, again, I didn't get video of it back in the day, but that was pretty cool. And we've done some other cool things. I've done a hidden Murphy safe. But man, nothing that cool, dude. I mean, I'm telling you, especially with that tile backsplash. I will tell you though, I was telling him before this podcast, and I'm going to tell him after. I do think I have a solution for the weight because I had to monkey around with it for something else I was doing that failed miserably. But I think from my failure, he may actually win. may win out on it.
Thanks for the help. For the help.
There you go. From my failures come great accomplishments.
This is a total Wayne's World moment. Like, we're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Isn't that so cool?
It's unbelievable.
Right.
Well, but now when people call me and they say they already have a set of plans and they already know what they want to do, why that's not us. I want to do something creative and interesting on every project that's somewhat unique. So you walk into the home, it doesn't look like every other remodeled home in the neighborhood.
That's the understatement of the century. Somewhat unique. That is just freaking unbelievable.
So Alan is a DIY guy and also a home enthusiast and does a lot of stuff around his own house. So he can definitely appreciate the artistry that went into that. Because and Dan was saying that before, he just said it just now on the podcast. Hey, I lost some money on that one, man, because that's how hard it was to build this thing. You had no idea what it was going to cost, and you had no idea how many iterations. Just put it in there.
You got it in there before he did.
Hey, look at me. So Dan, as you look at the at your company and what's going on in the future of the industry, where do you think and where do you hope the home improvement industry goes to?
I think right now that the problem we're having is their regulations are continuing to burden our industry with, changes to the code and the reporting requirements and the certifications that you got to have to do anything these days. And ultimately, I think where it's headed is more consolidation. The small companies cannot do everything they're being asked to do to meet the government requirements. A lot of small companies don't permit their jobs because they're not licensed, they can't pull the permit, but they don't have the resources to do everything they're expected to do outside of just building a project.
Yeah, I think that's a shame for I agree. That's where I think we're going in consolidation. I think in any part of the home service industry, you're going to see consolidation, but I think one of the big ones will be if you're an HVAC company, and we're seeing in the major metros today, Atlanta being a little bit behind compared to people or cities like Dallas and Houston and DC, where these conglomerate guys have gone from heating and air to electrical to plumbing to landscaping, pest control. One has a handyman division. So I think you're going to see consolidation there. And then you just hit on another thing is that the regulations, I thought the lead, when they put the lead paint stuff in there and then the huge penalties in the beginning that you would have if you didn't get, so I got certified. I remember they levied a $37,000 fine to some guy up in Massachusetts. So I was running so scared when it came to some of those old home remodeling, but all of our guys now know that's calmed down a little bit. But what's not calmed down, especially after COVID, has been the way the permitting groups, the way that I have a personal problem because my father-in-law was a building official. I think they've lost their way on what this was supposed to be. This is supposed to be protecting homeowners and people from a safety perspective. And now I think they've flip the switch so hard that you're right. To navigate those waters, you got to know what you're doing, and you can't do it as a one-man shop.
Right.
Because you will be in there for hours trying to figure out how to navigate that.
Well, and a small contractor, they're looking to get a job to contract and into construction for, cash flow. And it takes, it can take weeks, it can take months to get a permit these days in Georgia. And it's worse in other areas of the country.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because we're fighting right now with one in the city of Atlanta where I put a fire under my project manager who dragged his feet. But the city of Atlanta, existing footprint, going back with the same existing footprint, has asked for so many extra drawings. And if somebody would just go out there and walk the job for just 5 minutes, would go, oh, I get it. It's the same footprint. Yes.
But they won't do that. We just had a job where we basically were building an outdoor covered structure and the homeowner said, hey, let's add a couple skylights. So we framed up the skylights. The framing inspector came out and says, they're not shown on the plan. You got to go back, resubmit your framing plan to establish that the framing that he was looking at met the requirements of the city. Right.
So you can't give me a formal opinion because you're sitting here as somebody who should be in the trade and understand what we're doing.
Right.
You can't tell me, yeah, that's about right.
Right. So what we did, we drew up what we had built, submitted it. It was approved. He came back and gave us permission to move forward, but it cost us 2 weeks.
2 weeks. So I think that's where they're missing it. And that's where my father-in-law hit it in the head. Our job is to be here to protect the homeowners from unethical contractors and themselves.
Yep.
Because sometimes you'll see homeowners who will wire up and put a flexible gas line and run it between a wall and then up behind an oven and then tee it off and then take it over to their outside grill.
Right.
All running alongside the house where the kids are sitting.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and there's definitely a need for it. I do not believe that there should be anything done, without the proper oversight and everything else. The permitting has its place. It's just becoming so onerous that it's just pushing people to just try to do it without getting the permit.
We're coming to the end of this. One of the things I wanted to ask you, and I think it's interesting for a lot of people, is you're involved in NARI again here in Atlanta, but you also volunteered and got on the board and became president. Why did you do that?
Well, I was enjoying being part of the group. It was a great way for people to interact, share stories. I think the industry gets a bad rap for the standpoint people talk about how horrible contractors are, and in NARI, what I saw was a lot of great people, a lot of people that really want to do a good job. They want to take care of their client. They want to play by the rules. And so the opportunity presented himself for me to be in a position where I could represent an outstanding group of people, and I took it.
So it really didn't, because it doesn't necessarily benefit your company necessarily directly. It has, through networking. Of course, I can't refer as many to you as you could to me just because opportunities. So nobody's going to call me and say, I want you to blow out my $2 million house and make it a $3 million house. I'm like, I definitely would say at that point. Today, I know my lane, but I appreciate what you did. The reason I'm on the board. Well, one, I got sneaked into it and Mark Gailey. But now, I think the same thing. I'm learning as much as I'm giving. But I feel like it's time to give back a little bit and help people, and promote the industry, because I do think, like you said, I think there's a bad rap out there. Nobody knows what NARI is. There's 5.5 million people in Atlanta, I would say right now there's probably 200,000 consumers that may even know who we are. And it doesn't matter what that is, but that when those people present themselves, that they're presenting themselves like you would present yourself. And I want to help people like that be in business.
Yeah. And I look at, there's a lot of companies. Are they my competitors? I don't view them that way. It's a big market. There's plenty of work for everybody. And so we share a lot of information between each other to make everybody better.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. I think that's been good. So when you give, you get. I think that's a big thing that I would tell everybody, is that, I'm a big fan of networking. So is Alan, but it's not just the networking. It's the, and again, do I get jobs off it? I do, but I'm not worried about that. I've learned so much by, Dan letting us come in and just showing us what he does. And we implement some of those things in our own business. That's key. And then some of the other folks that I've met over the years that have just really helped me in my company. But and here I am trying to, I originally came in to help him with the finances. That was the hook in the beginning. Boom, boy, that was a doozy. But Alan.
Yeah. So Chris, you've told me, you hold Dan in like a special place, like super high regard. And you said he's been very open with you, and you've actually taken some things from him that you've implemented in your business. What are some of those things?
So one of them was he showed us what he does. So in this design build process, not that we do the design, is that once it's done, the customer comes back in and they get a project folder that says, here's your design, here's the construction timeline, here's what the costs are going to be. And they have a binder, and this binder says, this is what's going to happen. We didn't do the binder necessarily, but we have what we call our project plan book now that they see. And that is, these are the phases of the project. This is the expected timeline of the project. And every Friday, whether we're actively engaged with that customer or not, if they're still deciding, in selections or doing some things, that everybody gets an email on that Friday telling what next week's coming, just so they get touched. And that was just that was one small thing. The other one was, we're still wrestling with this too. And Dan brought this up. He said, I have outside designers that bring outside design expertise. I have people who help customers select things. We didn't bring that up, but then I have project managers or executioners. These guys execute and deliver, and knowing that that's where we got to go, that's what they do. So we're trying to get our project managers out of the design and selection process and get them into the implementation and execution process. Did it help?
No, it did, and the listeners don't know, but I just had your guys, Chris, come and do a project for me, which is kind of funny. Dan mentioned, he doesn't just install a front door, and that's exactly what you did for me. You took a single door and you turned it into a double door. And by the way, I will read you the text from my wife.
Oh, let me hear it. It better be
ready?
Good. Yep.
They're in exclamation point. I think they look really great, exclamation point. Now, she's an accountant. That is super effusive. Yeah, really happy. But I want to say,
knowing Alan's wife, that is like everybody else's 2 paragraphs of, I'm super excited. This is the best thing ever. These guys are the greatest ever. I think I can't imagine how easy it was. So I actually am reading so much into that. That's awesome. And I'm thrilled.
No, that is my wife doing cartwheels. But I want to say, your guy, I was just enjoying the process, because I knew you would have been so happy. How I got the text, I got the phone call, he showed up, he showed me the invoice, I confirmed the work, and then he laid out that timeline, and he goes, it's going to be 3 days, here's what we're going to do on, and I don't expect it to go long, we've got some weather, he kind of opened it up to where it could go longer. It was just clockwork, and very rarely do you actually get a vendor who will not only lay out those expectations but deliver on them. It was just like, wow, that was really refreshing. So I guess I have Dan to thank for that.
Yes,
you're welcome. There you go.
All right, so we can't let Dan go without and we're going to push out all of his social, all of his stuff to push him out, but I got to get to the question. So We asked the final 4 questions. One of the things that we want to know is, what's a book that you would recommend to our audience, either looking to start their own business, in a business, trying to scale it up?
So right now I'm reading a book recommended by another contractor called Traction. And what I found is, over the years, most business books don't surprise me, but what this one does is reiterates some things that we have kind of let slide and we're not doing as effectively as we have in the way we run our business. One, really reiterating to the team overall what our core values are, what's our vision statement, tracking that, monitoring that, nurturing that, and basically letting people know what the goals are for the company and then how we're going to get there and what their role is. And, it's just, I find a business book is something like that. You may get only a few things out of it, but just always looking to improve your business and never, letting things slide. And it's kind of refreshing, getting me back into it and making some points I haven't in a while.
I do like the Gino Wickman book, Traction. Yep, I've read it myself. Love that one. That's a good one. All right. Next question is, what's the favorite feature of your house?
Well, that's interesting because I don't own one. So I sold my house 2 years ago. And my kids were gone and we had to make a decision. Were we going to go? And we'd done a major remodeling project on it, 2 decades ago. It was time for another one. And what did we want to change it to? And we really decided it wasn't the house we wanted to be in. It was bigger than we needed to be. And we didn't know where to go. We sold it and we've been living in an apartment for the past 2 years.
Oh my God, Dan Weidmann. I can't believe that. I'm not going to let that get out. Oh my God. We just let that get out.
No, but wait, but what I'm doing is we bought a lot. We're looking to build a house. And so the best feature is I'm building a house that has exactly what I want, but nothing extra. So it's going to be significantly smaller than the house we left. It's going to have everything we want. Can't afford everything, but it's going to have all the features that we need to make it a great place to live for the next, 20, 30 years.
I love it. That's awesome.
So trap doors, secret wine cellar. I mean, what do we got going on? It's got to be something amazing. Come on.
Are we doing a Shakespeare?
No, right now I'm fighting with my wife. She doesn't want to put a retractable backsplash in. So trust me, there is one going in, but we've got some features, hidden garage door. So the whole backside of the garage is going to open up with the push of the button. You won't know it's there until it goes up. It basically is going to double the size of the courtyard that is right adjacent to it. I've got a lot of things going on. So
I like it.
It'll be neat.
He's dreaming. So there it is. The favorite feature of his house is yet to come. So we might have to have him back on, or at least maybe we can get some videos or some TikToks of that sucker. That's going to be awesome. All right. One of the things we're big on here is customer service. And Alan just talked about how great of the experience he had with our company. Thank you, Alan. That was beautiful. But we are customer service
freaks.
Thank you.
Freaks.
Total freaks. What is a customer service pet peeve of yours?
I hate the runaround when you call and it have to go through a series of different questions to get to a live person. Then ultimately that person can't solve the problem, transfers you to the person that supposedly can, and you get cut off. And I just had that experience with Truist. I got a new bank card. I called in, says it's activated. First time I tried to use it, it was rejected. Went into the bank. They called customer service. They said it was activated. Went back out. It was not activated. Got on the phone. Took me 3 calls, multiple attempts to finally get where I wasn't cut off and was talking to somebody to help solve the problem.
Brutal. That's a big one. I think that reminds me of one I had where I had to have my Comcast cable put in, right? And they said that we were scheduled for this day. And our appointment window, of course, at the time was somewhere between 8 and 5. So you had to be home all day. So at 4:30, nobody's here. So I call, and the answer I got was, "Is it 5 yet?" And I said, "Not yet." Well, we have until 5 to get there. I said, "Okay." 5:05, nobody here. I call. I get forwarded to the after hours people. I'm like, "It's after 5. I have no idea." I'm like, but they were supposed to be here. Well, I'm the overnight guy. I don't, we have different shifts. Our crews are running for the overnight jobs right now. I said, "Yeah, but my guy was supposed to be here at 5. He goes, "I don't have access to that system. I'm the overnight guy." So sometimes it's not the people, it's the process. And in this case, they had 2 different systems because in Atlanta, they were switching over, as I found out later, because what they didn't know is that actually I had a friend who was very high up at Comcast. And so he got a text message from me and we had somebody out there. And so that was nice to have good people, people in high places. But what I found out was that they had two different systems, the day guys and the night guys. And the night guys hadn't switched over to the day guys system yet. So they couldn't see where the day guys were running, and they were running the overnight stuff. And it was just a comedy of errors, but it's not their fault. You can't yell at them, right? You're frustrated because you've been waiting all day. Because this is back when I was working at the bank, and I had to wait. I had to sit at home and all day and wait. I mean, I could work from home, but I was supposed to be in the office. Anyway, all right. So that's the customer service pet peeve. All right. You've had a lot of them, but we want a good DIY nightmare story.
All right. So had a client, they weren't a client yet, homeowner that was taking on some projects on their own, including, and you were talking about HVAC and consolidation and everything else. They hired an HVAC contractor to replace their system. The work was done. They were down in the kitchen. They were writing the check when they smelled smoke. In soldering the last parts together, they had lit the attic on fire. And so they were home. They called the fire department. The fire department was there within 10 minutes. Ultimately, $315,000 worth of damage was done by that. Now, the part of the story where it gets worse is they had never checked to confirm that this contractor had insurance. He did not. So they had to go with their homeowners, but doesn't end there. They subsequently got a bill from him because they hadn't finished writing the check. And he said, well, I was done with the job. Their remark was, you can take that up with State Farm. See if they'll pay you.
That's awesome. You need to pay me. I'm like, I say, you say whatever you want. I'm like, sure, sue me. I don't care. Oh boy.
There's people in this business that have some guts. That took some guts.
That's guts. And speaking of guts, thank you, Dan, for coming on. This has been great. I've enjoyed it. Hopefully you had some good times too. And if you didn't pick something up from this one, you are missing something. You got to get out there, absorb these things. Hopefully you had a good time listening to this one. Let's keep going up that mountaintop. Let's get to that success point we're all looking to get to. And we're going to help you get there as fast as we can. But you just got to listen. You got to absorb it. You got to take it all in because we got to iterate through to the next one. We're out of here. Alan, cheers.
Cheers.